First dialogue. In a small town, there lived a young man named Mumin. He grew up in a religious family and was raised on the teachings of Islam. He was passionate about exploring the deeper meanings of the faith. On the other side of the spectrum was Shrek, a middle-aged man with an analytical mind, but he mixed different philosophies, which made him hesitant to understand monotheism as Mumin saw it. One day, the two met in an old cafe on the outskirts of town. Mumin was reading a book on Islamic doctrine, while Shrek sat down next to him, holding his cup of coffee. He glanced quickly at the book and then said with a wry smile, "Shrek, do you still believe that monotheism is that simple? Do you really think that belief in one God is what distinguishes humanity?" Mumin, not only what distinguishes him, but what gives his life purpose and meaning. Monotheism is not just an idea. It is a way of life. It is liberation from the servitude of men to the servitude of God alone. Shrek, but why all this insistence on monotheism? There are many religions, and there are those who worship idols, and there are those who see the universe itself as a god. Why do you Muslims insist that monotheism is the absolute truth? Mumin, because sound reason rejects polytheism, and because human nature inclines towards seeking one creator. Can you imagine the universe functioning harmoniously if there were more than one God? If there were two gods, they would differ in governance and management, and one would be powerless before the other, which would negate its divinity. Shrek, but some people don't believe in anything at all and live their lives normally believer, outwardly normal, but inside they have a great emptiness. Man cannot live without a purpose, and whoever denies the existence of God fills his emptiness with money, fame, or pleasures, but he remains lost. Monotheism liberates you from servitude to everything, so you fear none but God, rely on none but Him, and hope for none but His mercy. Shrek thinks for a moment, then says, "But don't you see that some religious people fall into contradiction? You find them believing in God, but at the same time they depend on humans for everything and fear other than God." Believers. And here comes the role of true monotheism, not just a word spoken, but a certainty that fills the heart. Monotheism is not just saying there is no God but God, but living it, realizing that sustenance is in God's hands, that power comes from God, that there is no one who can benefit or harm except Him, and that there is no true deity except God. Shrek, well, I find something profound in your words, but how can an ordinary person reach this level? Mumin, through science, contemplation, and closeness to God, to read the Quran with understanding, to reflect on the universe, to ask yourself, why am I here? What is the purpose of my existence? And you will find that monotheism is the answer. Silence reigned for a few moments. Then Shrek sipped his coffee and let out a long sigh, as if he were beginning to realize something new. Shrek, in a quiet voice, perhaps I've been looking in the wrong place all this time. Mumin, smiling, the search for truth is the first step to reaching it. And so the meeting ended, but the dialogue did not end within Shrek's mind. For he had begun a new journey, a journey to search for the meaning of monotheism in his heart before his mind.